There's a very interesting little clock. It was part of Ronnie Lee's personal collection, and he had it for the reason that he felt that the case, the wonderful cresting here, the walnut carving, is not at all typical of a French clock, and yet this is a French clock. And that the case is very, very similar to his favorite bunch of clockmakers, the Knibbs. And they had this type of cresting on quite a lot of their clocks. And so this is the cresting on the Jacques Hory clock. And you've got the beautiful carving of the central cherub here with his wings coming out, supported on these wonderful swirls of flowers and deep incised carving. It's a beautiful Knibb type carving, most unusual for a French clock. So here you've got the spandrel of the Hory clock, and the spandrel here is so typical of Knibb, with these double braces, as they're called here, for the wings of the cherub. And this now is a Joseph Knibb clock, and you can see the spandrel in the same corner. And let's compare the one to the other, going from the Joseph Knibb clock here, and then fade into the Hory clock, and then fade back into the Joseph Knibb clock. Very similar, aren't they? Here we have the two clocks side by side, the Samuel Knibb, made in London in about 1672, and the Jacques Hory, made in Paris Saint-Germain in about 1670. So, because these are very rough dates, you can never date a clock exactly. I think they were made about the same time. And this is the interesting thing to me, that the French clock here has a dual barrel, and so it runs the going train, the clock's ticking away here, and the strike train off the same barrel, one spring doing two jobs. And Knibb has copied this continental practice in this very early full grand sonnery clock. So this side of the clock is identical to the mechanism inside this clock, but it also then on the hour train, which has to do 4 hours each hour, it's a huge number of blows, Joseph Knibb uses a fusee. So twin barrels were not popular in London, and yet Knibb made one. Crested clocks are not common on the continent, and yet Hory made one. Did they ever meet? Who's to say? So I've turned both clocks round so you can see the twin barrels in each of the clock, and we'll just move a little bit closer so you can see the detail. So here's the two twin barrels side by side, and you can hear both the clocks ticking away. And we'll bring it right in close so you can see the actual twin barrels working on the Knibb clock here. So you can see the twin barrels with the two great wheels, this one running the quarter train and this one on this side running the going train. And so I'll make the clock strike now, and you'll be able to see the quarter train move. So it's just coming up to the hour, so I'll make the clock strike. And you can see the wheel turning. And then we have to turn the clock round so you can see the hour train running.
you can hear the spring struggling every now and again to have the energy to cock the bell hammer. So you get these long pauses sometimes when it's just trying desperately to get enough energy to make the strike. So we'll make the clock strike quarter past now, so you'll get 1 quarter blow, which you won't see anything move, and then it will strike the hour. So you can see the fusee through the gut, the spring driving the fusee, and then the great wheel driving the train itself.
Because the problem with having the 2 trains running off the one spring is that the energy to keep the pendulum swinging is much lower than it is to start up the strike train, and because you're pulling against the spring before the hammer flies back again, and so that requires quite a lot of energy. And so that you can get the stage as the spring runs out, the clock keeps going, but it stops striking. And then it gets completely out of phase on the count wheel. And it's an hour's job to get it all back into phase.